Hi everyone, this morning we're going to be drawing an eye together, and the handout I'll be following is located on the Drawing Bootcamp module under Eye, Nose, and Mouth. If you would like to download that yourself and have this same handout, you can definitely do that. Otherwise, just follow along with me. The steps I'll be following is step 1, step 2, and step 3 today. So starting out, the materials you're going to need are your 4B pencil, your HB pencil, an eraser, and your tortillon. Make sure that your pencils are nice and sharp before you begin, so make sure that you have that pencil sharpener handy in case you need it. Let's get started. So I'm going to start with my HB pencil, and the first thing I'm going to do is draw a contour drawing of that eye. Simple line drawing. I'm going to use again my HB pencil when I do this, and I'm going to draw in my sketchbook, and I'm going to draw a little bit bigger than life size so that when I shade I have plenty of room. So we're starting with the tear duct, which is the part that most people forget when they draw an eye. It's nice and rounded at the top, and then you'll see there's a little bit of extra line here, sort of to indicate where that eyelid covers our eye. I'm going to do the underside, come up and around like so. The next thing I'm going to draw is that interior part of our eye. That is a circle, right? That cornea, I think it's called the iris of your eye, but we're not going to be able to see the entire thing. Sometimes students will draw a whole circle in here, but that's not really what we see when we look at our eyes. We usually see most of it, but not all of it. So if you can imagine that I'm drawing a circle here, but there's part of that circle that's up here that I'm not able to see. If you wanted to draw that and continue the line and then erase it, you can. And then that interior part, that black part, the pupil of the eye, that definitely is a circle. Don't make that too small. If your pupils are really dilated or very, very small, it can make your eye look a little bit intimidating or a little scary to look at. So this is the general shape you want to start out with. I'm going to draw just a little line in here also just to indicate where that tear duct is. Again, that might feel a little bit strange to draw, but it's going to help our eye look more realistic. That next line I'm going to draw is right on top. This line is the one that most students forget, and if you look at your own eye in the mirror, you probably have some type of crease or shadow there just above your eye to indicate where your eyelid is, that little bit of flesh that covers your eye. I'm going to draw another line down here on the bottom to indicate kind of where our eyelash line is for our lower lashes, and another small line here just to indicate where that bone of our skull is underneath our eye. So this is how we're going to be starting out. Now we're going to be adding in some value. So I'm going to be using my 4B pencil. Now I'm going to change my pencil to something a little bit darker. And the first thing I'm going to draw is a little triangle right in here. This triangle is the reflection in the eye, and I don't want to draw in that space. It's really important that we have some type of reflection there that helps our eye look a little bit more glassy. And then I'm going to color in that pupil. Again, leaving that little triangle of white in there. I'll go back and darken that up with a tortillon later, but that looks good for now. And then I'm going to color in, I think this part is called the iris, the colored part of your eye. And this is where students sometimes will color it one flat shade of gray, but we don't want to do that. If you look really closely at your eye, you'll notice that it's kind of in a starburst pattern like this. So I'm going to start by just making some light starburst pattern lines there. And if you look at your own eye in the mirror, you'll also notice that the exterior edge of your iris is darker. Our eyes actually get lighter here toward the pupil, and they're darker out here at the edge. So I'm going to darken up out here at the edge just a little bit. Again, we'll use a tortillon in a minute to help us kind of blend these together. gonna look something like that, again, a little darker at the edges. We don't wanna have any sharp, hard outlines here. So let's get that tortillon out. I'm gonna use my tortillon now. This is one I've used before, so there's already some graphite on there. So I know that I don't have to push very hard because I'm already using a tortillon with some graphite on it. So the first thing I'll do is just shade in that interior part of the eye to get that nice, rich black. And I'm actually gonna erase out that little highlight bit too. That little line, I don't need that line in there. And then I'm going to use my tortillon in that same motion that I used before, going in and out, and I'm not pushing very hard at all right now. And I'm going to darken that edge just a little with my tortillon. Again, we don't want this to be one flat shade of gray. We want to see some variety of values in there, so don't go too hard with this. Nice and delicate. We can still see some pencil lines. You may want to go back and even use your HB pencil and make some individual lines that are a little bit more defined. There we are. The next thing we're going to work on are these white parts of the eye. Now, we might be thinking to ourselves, well, wait, Miss Parker, the white of the eye should be white. And I would generally agree with you, but actually this white is not pure white. It's not the white of a paper. And our eyes actually get darker as we go back in space. So this part of our eye out here is going to be a little bit darker because it's further away from us. I'm going to use my tortillon to really gently just shade in that. I want a nice smooth transition here. So it's just a slight value scale from a light gray to white, and same over here. From a light gray, blending really nice and smooth into white. Do you see how that makes our eye start to look more three-dimensional, right? This is the part of the eye that comes toward us. These parts of the eye go back. I'm going to clean up these edges just a little here on my reflection too. I don't want to have any outlines there. Now, last thing we'll do is we're going to shade in this little bit of our tear duct. That's going to be slightly darker than the eye. I'm just going to use my tortillon for that. And we have our eye shaded. Let's move on now to our step 2. So if you want to follow along with me, if you're looking at the handout, we've gotten step 1 done and the interior of step 2. Now we're going to start talking about this eyebrow up here. Now, everybody's eyebrows look different, right? Some people go to salons and they get their eyebrows even shaped a very, very specific way. We're going to keep this really simple. And I'm going to start, and I'm going to hold my pencil out here at the end. This is going to be able to give me more of a feathering motion when I make my pencil lines. You don't want to hold your pencil way up here. You want to hold it back just a little bit further. Our eyebrows generally start right at the corner of our eye. So if we made an invisible straight line up, it would start somewhere in here. Those first lines I'm going to make are almost straight up, feathering just to the right a little bit. These are usually a little bit longer, and that angle tends to kind of go more and more almost flat or parallel to the bottom of our page, and then our eyebrow can kind of feather out at the end. Do you notice how light my lines are? And how I'm almost like going down on the paper and I'm lifting up. We don't want to see any hard, sharp lines. We want to see lines that are really nice and feathery. That's going to make it look more like hair. It's almost like you push down and lift up, down and lift up, down and lift up. You can build that shape of your eyebrow. I probably made mine a little bit higher than the eye than I normally would. Remember that you always have an eraser available to you, so as you're working, if you realize, oh, I don't like that shape, I don't like that angle, get that eraser out and you can always redo it. So there's my really simple eyebrow for today. And this is everything for step 2. The last thing we're going to be doing is shading around this eye to make that whole space start to look more realistic. So I'm going to go back to my Tortillon again. And the first thing I'm going to shade in is this line. That line is actually a crease, right? There's like a fold of skin that goes back in there. So I'm going to take this line and I want to fade it out just a little bit. I want it to be a little bit softer. I'm going to let that fade above. This just softens that crease up a little bit so it starts to look more like an actual fold. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing on this top line of the eye. So I'm going to shade right along this edge. Because this fold of skin, if you think about it, is really rounded. This is the farthest away, it comes toward us, and then it goes away again. So this is really similar to what we were doing with value recently, with things being close to us, far away, and then coming back. So you want to have a nice light, almost like highlight on that ridge of the eye. And then out here, we're going to just blend this together a little bit as that blends into the skin. Brightest highlight on this is going to be out here. This is where the thickest flesh is for that eyelid. So I'm going to make this just a little lighter gray in here. Notice these are really subtle shifts in value. You can always go back in with your pencil if you want and darken that up just a little bit too. What we don't want though is harsh outlines. No harsh outlines. Again, notice how I'm holding my pencil way out at the end. So I can work really nice and light as I do this. Everything is nice and subtle shifts in value. Again, when you work with your tortillon, notice how I'm doing small circles. I shouldn't see any of this action going back and forth. That's way too much. It's going to make your work look really streaky. So small circles is the way to go with this. I'm going to continue fading out this value all the way up to my eyebrow line. So it's going to be nice and light. And I'm barely pressing down as I do this. I'm going to darken up this corner just a little bit more. And this interior part of the eye is typically where light gets trapped most. So I'm going to push a little bit harder in there and make that just a bit darker. And then again, letting it fade up into the eyebrow. If at any point you think, you know what, I should push some of these values, make them a little darker, great, go back in there. I'm going to darken mine up just a little bit more. And then go back with my tortillon and blend those one more time. Again, I want the lightest part of this eyelid to really be out here on the highlight. That's usually the part of our eyelid that has the most flesh available to catch that light. Last thing we're going to do is look at underneath the eye now. So I'm going to do just a bit of value, start pulling that down underneath. We want to keep this ridge under the eye pretty light. So I'm barely pressing down again. And then right in here, most of us have a little bit of shadow going on, right? We try to cover that stuff up, getting a lot of sleep, trying to cover that up with concealer, but the reality is we all have a little bit of shadow under our eyes. So I'm going to fade that out just a little bit. And small circles. Again, try to avoid those harsh outlines. That's what we really want to avoid today, is any harsh outlines on anything. So our last step is adding in eyelashes. And eyelashes can be really tricky because, again, as we wear makeup, those of us who wear makeup, we have a lot of control over what our eyelashes look like. We could add eyeliner, things like that. So I'm going to show you a super simple way to add some eyelashes today that's really, really natural looking and kind of not super noticeable. So a lot of times when students make eyelashes, they want to do hard lines. But our eyelashes actually get lighter and thinner toward the ends. So I'm going to start out here where our eyelashes are longest. I'm going to take my 4B pencil, and I'm going to do a flicking motion and almost lift it up on the ends as I do this. You don't need to do a lot. And notice how my angle of my eye is going out this way. As I move more toward the center, I'm going to try to do it slightly more up because those eyelashes are coming toward us. But we don't need to draw every single eyelash. Sometimes we think, well, we probably have like 50 or 60 eyelashes, so I need to draw 50 or 60 lines, right? Definitely not. We just want to give the impression of eyelashes. And you can make them longer, shorter. You can always erase these if you don't like the way they look. Maybe curve them a little bit more if you want. But you want to have a variety of values, and you want to overlap them just a little bit. Again, if you're somebody who wears makeup, maybe you want to draw a little bit more defined line on there. You can imagine this person maybe has some eyeliner on their upper lid, right? Same with the bottom. Lower eyelashes especially are usually really unnoticeable, right? So we want to do super light, almost like little spider legs, not very many, just to give that impression that there's some eyelashes happening here. Again, if you wanted to imagine this person's wearing makeup, you could define this a little bit more. Drawing eyes can be really fun that way because you can kind of make them your own. Just don't go overboard. When we start doing too much of this, it starts looking like this person has lots of spider legs coming off of their eye, and we don't want that. So spend some time, make this eye your own shape. Even as I'm looking at this, I'm noticing it's got a little bit blended into each other. I'm going to fix that up a little here. Your next step might be looking at your own eye. What is the shape of your eye? Practice drawing your eye. Maybe find a magazine or a photo online of someone's eye that you find interesting and practice drawing that. And have fun. Drawing eyes is a really fun thing to practice. Thanks, guys.